All right, well, good morning, everyone. I'm State Representative Bjorn Olson from District 22A. That's the Fairmont, Blue Earth, Medelia area. And for the past couple of weeks, we GOP members have been outlining kind of a roadmap of where we would like to see our state go. And one of the areas in which we're hoping to make some significant change in the near future is with regards to electronic pull tabs and the changes that were made 2 years ago that have significantly hindered our charities and our veteran organizations, and basically our ability for our communities to help support themselves. So we just heard in the Veterans Committee this morning, House File 733, which would essentially remove all the restrictions that the DFL majority placed on our charities and their charitable gambling restrictions that they did 2 years ago. So that would be essentially the open all feature, the extra electronic stuff that you can do on these games that adds a little bit of the fun to the aspect of what we're doing. Now, I told them in committee this morning, I said 2 years ago, the majority party was looking for a solution to a problem that didn't actually exist. Now, they were looking at a situation where they said, we owed it to the tribes to change these things. Apparently, there was a negotiation that they kept falling back into from 2012 that consistently was ruled on in court, saying that the Gambling Control Board was in fact doing a good job of regulating these games. And so what we're seeing is a significant reduction in revenue from our community charities. And what that means, brass tacks, is our communities suffer. You're talking about radios to fire stations. You're talking about sporting events that other kids wouldn't be able to afford because their parents maybe don't have that money. You're talking about veterans organizations that are supporting our soldiers, supporting our veterans who are committing suicide at a rate of 22 a day in the United States. Now, this is what we are hurting by not fixing the wrong that was done 2 years ago. So House File 733 is entirely devoted to returning Minnesota's charitable gambling back to the way it was, back to the successes that we had seen for the last decade in supporting our charities, in supporting our communities, and in supporting ourselves. So we've got some individuals here from some charities who would like to make some comments about the significant reduction in their revenues that they've seen just over the last month with the new implementation of these games.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Amanda Jackson, and I'm a member of the Spring Lake Park Lions Club. In 2013, I became the club's gambling manager, and very shortly after taking on that role, I started coming down to the Capitol to advocate for tax relief. I've been coming down here year after year to speak with our legislators and educate them that for every $1 we have to give to those in need in our community, we are giving over $2 to the state of Minnesota in taxes. The heavy burden, along with the 2023 legislation that stripped our electronic pull tabs of many of their entertaining features, is why we are here to support Representative Olson's bill. The new games have been in play for 1 month, but the revenue has dropped. I pulled some numbers just from our organization in Spring Lake Park. In 2024, January, we had net or gross sales of $947,000 in ETAB revenue. In January of 2025, that amount has dropped to $816,000 in ETAB revenue. Our Small Lions Club makes a huge impact on the communities we serve. We fill the needs and make donations where funding falls short. Our club has provided the SBM Fire Department with new life-saving equipment used to extract people from vehicles after a crash. If there's a student in Spring Lake Park School District 16 who can't afford a pair of eyeglasses, our club will pick up the tab. We bought teenagers warm jackets, gloves, hats, and boots after their dad passed away unexpectedly and they had to move in with a family who was a member of our community. Over the years, we have made countless donations to school programs, hockey, football, baseball, basketball, lacrosse, and more. We help with outdated equipment needs and scholarships for kids who can't afford to play those sports. Our club finds it important to fund other school programs for the non-athletes as well, such as robotics team, the mathletes, the school bands and choir, and the theater programs. Our club also supports our local nonprofits who are always in constant contact with us on their needs. We give all we can to our local food shelves, Meals on Wheels, our local battered women's shelter, and youth homeless shelters and drop-in centers, which are all dependent on their local Lions clubs for donations throughout the year. In December of 2023, our gambling operation dropped our accounting firm to save the monthly cost of filing our taxes because of anticipation of the ETAP changes. As I'm finishing up our January 2025 taxes, I'm typing an email to our local Spring Lake Park House representative to let her know that this month, 1 month into the ETAP changes, our club netted a loss of $7,000 while paying $78,000 to the state of Minnesota in taxes. We await her response, but hope she will step up and forge the way for change. Lions clubs all use the same motto, which is we serve. And all we are asking is to continue with our missions and serve others. Serve those in need, serve those who are serving others, and continue to do our part to make our little corner of the world the best it can be for those who work, live, and attend school there. Thank you.
My name is Rachel Keller, and I am the president of the Bloomington Kennedy Activities Foundation in Bloomington, Minnesota. We found the need, as well as the recipient of some of the money that is brought in from the charities. We actually partner with Post 550, the Legion ourselves, to receive money. We actually partner with the local high school and Kennedy High School in Bloomington, where we assist in the families with shoes, paying for some fees, uniforms, equipment, singing lessons, and group events. Again, we partner with Kennedy alongside because we are finding the ever-increasing needs of our community going down. It's harder to fundraise. As if you're a parent out there, you understand going door to door, neighborhood, asking your family for money. In some of those communities, and especially in Bloomington, where it's a little bit of a bigger community, these kids just don't have the same opportunities to do that, and the families don't have that source of revenue. So we reached out to the local Post 550, the Legion, and we partner with them by running a program where they actually, they donate to our foundation by us running a bingo program that we work here in the local, in Bloomington. But we are finding with some of these law changes that if the Post 550 that we partner with, if their revenue goes down, the revenue that they're able to give us is going to also go down because the resources are not going to be there. Last year alone, the Post was able to give our foundation over $30,000 of what we do for our little, on our little corner of Bloomington. So that's why we are here today to say, hey, take a look at what you're doing. You're really hurting the everyday families, the families like ourselves, the everyday kids, the everyday students in our communities.
Hi, I'm Tim Engstrom. I'm the gambling manager for the American Legion in Bloomington that she referenced. I'm also the communications director for the American Legion Department of Minnesota. You know, you drive around the community and you see so many things that the Legion fills in, you know, like a lot of the gambling that you hear about is this sport or that sport, so that kind of leaves the Legion in a lot of communities, or VFWs, to have to fill a lot of the community needs. We're helping veterans, but we're also doing a lot of this thing here or this thing there. So for an example, last year, the Bloomington schools budget cuts killed a summer program to teach English to high school kids who are new to America. The program enabled them to attend regular high school because they could understand the language. The program had nowhere else to go but to the American Legion, and we were able to donate $3,000 so the program could survive. And it took place last summer, thanks to us. You go to Kennedy High School, there's a pantry. It has notepads, pencils, deodorant, toothpaste, and more things for kids whose families can't provide these common items. We fund that pantry. You drive around the community, and there's all these things that we support here and there: the food shelf, the art center, the youth sports, youth programs, Closet of Hope, which is like, you know, a food shelter, but only for clothes. 4th of July fireworks, so everyone can share in the 4th of July spirit, and then flags at the schools, medical care, now and then someone has a medical fundraiser, even the needlework club at the community center. We do this because we like to have a sense of purpose. We veterans, we didn't stop serving the country after we got out of the military. When the legislature in 2023 stripped features from e-pull tab games, we knew it would impact our ability to raise revenue for these programs. Now it's happening. Of my 2 locations, one of them is rather new, so I kind of don't want to use its numbers, but the other one's we've had for a long time. It's net receipts, that's the money that you get after the prizes are awarded. That's down 29% comparing this January compared to January 2024. So overall gambling is affected. But you look at that number, and e-tabs were down 44% from this January to last January. We tried to put a smile on this. We tried to make lemonade out of lemons. We told our customers it's not going to be so bad. We don't want to have it be a self-fulfilling prophecy of some sort. And we tried our best to put a smile on this. And the customers, they still didn't like the new games. We're going to have to live with this, and yet at the same time, we still have to pay 33% of net receipts in new taxes. We still have other costs going on. We have the price of the games themselves go up. The minimum wage has gone up. We now offer safe and sick time. There's other prices involved that go up. And the pull tabs generally still cost $2 a piece, so I can't just raise it to $2.15 or anything. So you don't have to be an economist to understand that there ends up being fewer donations to go around. So I often say we're like bugs under a rock. Once a year, the legislature picks up the rock and looks at us and goes, look at how busy they are. They're doing such great work. And then they put the heavy burden back on top of us. We would like this year to be the year that we finally see some action and see some tax relief and see some form of better revenue for the charities. Thank you.
And I'll just say one more thing before we open up for questions. Our communities depend on these charities. Our communities, our veterans, our soldiers, our state depends on the charitable giving that we are seeing through the ability to play these games. Our state depends on it. 2 years ago, the Democrat majority tied the charities' hands behind their back and said, still do all the great things that we depend on you to do. And our hope, what the GOP will continue to do, is to fight for these charities, for our communities, for our soldiers and our veterans, to ensure that they can continue moving forward in the mission that they have, which is to serve. Are there any questions?
I have one. I'm curious if the charities can speak to the, framework for the sports betting deal that would include some money for the charities. Is that, if that were to happen, is this moot? Do you not need the repeal of the restrictions, or does that not fully make you whole, that part of the deal that you guys would get from that framework?
Hi, I can speak to that. My name is Rachel Jenner, and I'm the Executive Director of Allied Charities. We have been working with lawmakers as a stakeholder in the sports betting bill and hoping to get at least $40 million in relief. At this point, we're only 1 month into these new ETAB changes. It's hard to speak to what that will mean, but if the numbers continue to be, if we continue to see the losses that we're seeing now, that sports betting revenue will not offset those losses. If we're at a 20 or 30% loss in ETAB revenue, I think our ETAB revenue last year was $386 million. Losing 20% of that is not going to be made up with the sports betting tax revenue.
And the $386 million, that was
After prizes.
After prizes.
What we
and after-
deposited.
Okay.
Yep, our revenue that we deposited on the games. So we'd be over $70 million in losses at a 20% decline.
So would you still be a stakeholder in the sports betting bill if
We are still supporting it because frankly, $40 million is more tax cuts than we've seen ever. Typically, when they enacted this legislation in 2023, they gave us $15 million a year, and we're paying $192 million a year. So it was a drop in the bucket in terms of our total tax burden. In committee this morning, I testified to a small Claremont Chamber of Commerce who's donating $223,000 a year, which is huge for a town of 542 people, but their tax burden was over nearly $400,000 a year. So their taxes are almost double what they're donating on an annual basis.
Can I then speak to, like, so there are, I remember when you guys came forward when this was passed, concerned about that there was no games on the market that would apply to the features that, or would not have the features that are banned. So are there games then that do exist, they just don't have the,
Playability.
Or the rollout
Yeah.
feature, I'm forgetting the term.
Yeah, the game manufacturers have been working to bring new games into the market. They had a number of new games on January 1 when these regulations were enacted. What we're seeing is that the player engagement is less because they can't have an open all feature. So now players were mentioning at the VFW, I used to be able to hit one button to play my tab. Now I'm hitting 3 or 4 buttons to play that same game. It slows down the games, and it also is annoying for players that had games that were totally different 7 weeks ago. So that's what I think we're seeing is that irritation factor with players who aren't excited to have to play games differently. They've also lost the bonus in the free play and some of the other entertaining features of the games that really engaged people.
Representative Olson, what's the path look like going forward for this as far as the makeup of the House currently, after the special election, the way that the Senate is organized? How do you see this thing moving forward?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're seeing now is we just passed it out of the Veterans Committee, it went on to Commerce, so we've got a little bit of movement that we need to do within the House. But I remain very optimistic that we'll be able to do something with this. We may not see exactly this bill come out of the finish line at the end of this year, but what I can tell you, you want to look at the Senate, they always get really nervous and when it's their election season, and our senators are now in an election season, and there's a couple Democrats I think we would be able to get onto our side with this issue. So I remain optimistic. It's not just us sitting here saying this is what we stand for and this is what we want. It is partly that, but there is an opportunity here that we can do some real good to, you know, if we can't untie both hands behind the charities' backs, we can at least untie one of them.
What do you think that looks like, a compromise? Is it that we allow some features of the games, we offer more money to offset the losses?
Sure, so obviously the tax cuts, increasing tax cuts in exchange for other things would be a really good thing, but when you're talking about the games in particular, every time someone in opposition of this bill speaks, they say, well, you know, there was this lawsuit and it said that the open all feature is problematic. Now there was a lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit, and then one kind of came out that way. One of the verdicts kind of came out in a way that said the open all feature may in fact be a little bit problematic, but none of the other things were in there. I spoke with the tribe's representative this morning and I said, here's the deal, you keep talking about this lawsuit, if that's all you care about, then let's bring back the other playability factor that was never even mentioned. And so there are places and areas that I think we can work.
But is there a game out there that doesn't have the open all feature but has those other bonus?
No, yeah, so in the 2023 legislation, not only did they do what originally was recommended, they got rid of the open all feature, but then they got rid of everything else as well. So the lawsuit, or the legislation from 2023 basically made that a non-factor.
To clarify for you that the 23 law went into effect on January 1st of this year, so the new games that we're talking about have just been around for about a month. There were a couple that were out a little bit in advance, but
I'm saying that are there any of the old games that you can no longer play because of these
Yeah.
other features? Is there a universe in which you don't have the open all, but you have those other playability factors on a game that
Right.
exists today?
No, so that's the interesting fact. When this legislation was passed, they actually had to extend the deadline for the new games because there was no such thing as a game that would fit this requirement across the entire United States.
So basically, they'd have to change the game again.
Right.
If you took out open all, but left in whatever the other playability
Right.
features are.
They'd have to make some adjustments for sure. Perfect. Anything else? Well, thank you all so very much for your time.
Good to know.